Okay, let's try this again. Hopefully, tell them I'm back up. Back up now. New live. Doo-doo. No, actually, it was a forced reboot. It went boop and turned me off. And when I, what the heck? And it was trying to turn on monetization. I guess we got enough people in here. It demanded monetization be turned back on. It didn't like the fact I wasn't going to be running commercials. And I had to reboot to get rid of it. It just kept saying, turn on monetization, turn on monetization. No. And so I just had to reboot. If it does it again, we'll see. But it was just like that. My screen went, just like it said, you're offline. Turn on monetization. I wonder why. But we're back anyway. So, and now all that neat stuff I typed into the description box is in the first video, so I'll just have to tell them, go look at it. There we go. Prepared for, you're back. Yep, Tim Funk, hello. Battle 1776, good evening. You missed the big cutoff. I got kicked out, but we're back now. Isn't technology wonderful? They so lied to us. JB Caudill, hello there. But 112, hello there. Yep, James Singer watching the circle. They don't like you doing lives without monetization because they want to make money. And they're afraid that you're doing some sort of political chat or something. And so therefore they want money on it. And it kicked me off. It wasn't me. As you see, I was just sitting here talking and said, you ain't on. And I rebooted it. So hopefully we shall see. All right, Little Rock, Arkansas, Deanna and David, glad you're back. Mark Burgess, good evening. Again. Oh, yeah. I got to go, y'all get to see on Sunday, I got to go spend time with Grouch yesterday. And had a pretty good time with him. David Wright, are you going to be at the Heritage Skills in June? Where will that be at, David? Ian Gilroy, yep, you're here. Stephen Kingsbury, hello, brother. Feels like camping weather, don't it? Pink contacted me and he said, I'm going nuts. I need to get out and camp. When can we meet up at the lake and camp? And I said, well, we know more cold weather's on the way now, don't we? He said, I don't care. I'll run coffee. Okay. Ohio. David, I don't know. I put 9,373 or 78 miles on my vehicle just going to events in 2024. 9,000 miles. Yeah, I ran up and down everywhere, and I'm getting where I don't know about going all these long trips. I don't know if it's helping me out so much. But I'll think about it. Let's see. Oh, JB, want to see the stickers again? Okay. Well, she's got two different sizes. And there's one in white, in case you got dark glass you want to put it on. And then she's got it in this one green. I don't know whether she give you a choice of colors. And then they're in two different sizes. So there's that big one and there's that. And it's got my Safe Journeys going all around it. Then it got my hat and my mustache and goatee. I did a sketch of this couple of years ago because I thought that'd make a good logo for me. And Safe Journeys, because that's what I always say is Safe Journeys. And so she's making these up now. And that way those people say, I want a Blackie sticker to go on the window or whatever. Okay, well, we'll come up with one then. Chris Hall, good evening, brother. Jerry, how you feeling? I'm feeling really good. I'm not going to say I'm 100. I'm never going to say that. But I'm feeling really good. So I'm taking it day by day, doing exactly what they're telling me to do, exercising, and just trying to stay in there. Tomorrow is fine for me. Yeah, I hear you, brother. Miss Pam, good evening. Negative 28 Celsius overnight. Yep, that's pretty cool. Hiram, no. The state fishing license will be good at that lake. You don't need a separate permit. The $5 per day camping use fee that you pay for the lake covers the permit to fish or hunt. And so, that's all they charge is $5 a day flat fee for camping, hunting, fishing, all the above. You just need a Alabama fishing license. You can get a 7-day temporary license, and it'd be good there at the lake. Patriot American, is the big freeze over? Nope. I feel we've got at least 1 or 2 more good cold snaps coming. Joe, hello to Maine. Any chance you'll do a cooking series on just desserts? I feel that would be a great addition to your cooking series. I was planning on doing a lot of things like that in the Dutch oven because I'll show how to bake pie, how to make cobblers, how to make sweet rolls. That's where the Dutch oven really shines to me. And once you know how that, you can adapt it, but really there's a break point where you can't make it any smaller and make it worth your time. For the amount of effort it takes to make one little bitty roll in a canteen cup is just really not worth the time. And so I will probably have quite a bit on desserts then. So just stay tuned. We'll get to it. Patriot Preacher 43, hello there. Will, 38 special or 380 for Silver Wolf close carry weapon? Either one will do. I like the 38 with 147 grain in it. It hits good, penetrates well. 380 is nothing to sneeze at, and if you want them for a little pocket gun, it works well. Definitely lighter than the 38 as far as bulk, etc. Ed, good evening. Dances with Empties, good evening. Jeff Hansen, hello there. Hiram, what kind of fish is out there? Bass, brim. I believe there's some shell crackers, and I believe catfish is out there. I have not seen anybody talk about catching crappie out there, but definitely bass and brim, catfish. Gray Wolf, yes, but if you're an Alabama resident, once you turn 65, you don't need a hunting or fishing license anymore. It's all free. The only thing you need is a hunt over bait, $15. I think that's about it, but besides that, that's it. Your driver's license becomes your fishing and hunting license. Gear Boy Forge, good evening. Yep, dump cake, good stuff. Oh yeah, battle. Dump cobbler. That's what we all teach the kids. That's the first thing they learn to cook is dump. And then you get more and more progressive into, find what their natural niche is in cooking and go with that. But dump is always the first thing we get. Now, another little thing out there that works really good is you take a Sara Lee pound cake and you take it to camp and you take clean pitches and Cool Whip. And you're going to slice it thin, slice the cake real thin, like a number 2 pencil. And you're going to lay them in a skillet or something and just warm them up just a little bit till they're good and warm. And then you're going to pour the sliced peach juice on them and heat them up. Okay, the peaches and all. And then once it's good, you scoop them up. They'll be damp. They're going to fall apart. You need a nice broad spatula. Scoop them up and put them on a plate like a little log cabin, and then put a peach in the middle and a dollop of Cool Whip on top. That's really good too. The guys that are old enough, we remember sea rations, the pound cake, and the peaches. I would hoard them suckers whenever I could find them in the meals and stuff until I had about 5 or 6 of each, and 2 coffee creamers and 4 sugars, and I'd make up a big old cobbler in a pot out of that. That was good. Christopher Evans, thank you very much. Brett, Blackie, is there anything wrong with using 4.51 round ball and 44 caliber revolvers? Should work just fine. In fact, 4.51 is what you start. Really, it should be in a cap ball 44. It's 4.51. In the past, there might be some out there that was 4.54. It's just a little harder to ram, makes a little wider ring, a little better driving. If your rifling's a little war and you can handle the loading, go 4.54 because it makes a broader contact ring to engage the rifling better. 4.57 is for Ruger Old Armies and really doesn't fit anything else well, unless it's just a walled out bore. Steve Kingsbury, yes, migratory birds, you still have to buy that, get that permit. You're correct. Thank you. Okay, 21. Thanks, Charles Martin. Always about the seasoning the iron and the pots and pans and the cast iron skillets was always number 21. Thank you. David, I saw that Ruger and the 1022. That looks really good. I also saw where H&R is back in business. They were put completely out. They're back in business, and now they're making a lever action. And so that looks interesting as well. There's a lot of things popped up in this SHOT Show that sound interesting. Farrell, y'all have any experience with the Rossi Tuffy Turkey single shot? I have seen them, but I haven't fired one. But I've got quite a bit of experience with a single shot shotgun, but not that particular gun. Justin Coon, good evening, brother. You was in a Twitter fight. Oh, you love him. That coon in you, you loved it. Once you get your fangs stuck into him, you love to just sit there and hang on. So, yeah, I'm sure you had a fun time with it. Correct, Gray Wolf. The 45 AC period 9mm are great, are much cheaper to run. 45 Colt and 410 interchange. Hand loading will bring your price way down on 45 Colt. I shoot 45 Colt and I hand load mine with a modest charge of good powder and get the ballistics and everything, but I don't use a ton of powder in it. And so it works. And I got my own moles to cast my own stuff. Andrew, I was wondering if you could use plastic wads. Yes, they've been done before. It just makes sure that the plastic isn't going to leave a coating on the inside of the barrel as it scrapes going down the barrel. You can shotguns have this problem where the shotgun wads, which are made out of plastic, an extended shooting in a smoothbore will leave a residue in the barrel you got to scrub out, or it gets to where it's a rough spot. That's one of the reasons that plastic shot wads, which were made at one time, I know back in the 80s they had them. Circle yoke, I think they were called, but they didn't hold up well in the long run because they would impart a fouling into the bore because of it on the rifling. You had to scrub it out. Okay, let me catch back up. Yeah, Justin Coon, I saw that. They're coming out with a 9mm lever. We've already got Piet and them make a single action in 9mm, which is pretty cool. Oh, Charles Martin, why were you gone? It just booted me out, internet connection or whatever, and it came up and it demanded I turned on monetization, and I had to reboot my computer. So. Stargate, got you. You had changed name, got it. Any suggestions for solar radios or radios in general? I know the ones that Sportsman's Guide sells are well liked. They're actually a fairly tough radio that's solar powered and even got a little crank on them. But they do work well, and it's all the proper frequencies of AM, FM, weather, and shortwave, etc. So you'll be able to find out about anywhere on the planet. You're going to be able to get a news broadcast of some kind or a weather broadcast. So those would be the ones I'd look for. I haven't played with radios like that in a long time, but that's the way that where I'd go look. Oh yeah, Mark Berg, Ken Rollins, exactly. He's really good. All right, let me catch back up. Gray Wolf, yes, correct. 7 grains is pretty close. 6.5, 6.8, 7, and that there are 7,000 grains in a pound, so you're getting 1,000 rounds out of a pound. Unique is the one that I normally run. Yeah, David Burkhalter. 8.5, something like that, in the 4440 or the 45 Colt, which their loads are very similar. Richard Hayes, any experience with orange bottle tanning solution? Nope, afraid not. I live in a place where we are baked by solar radiation. You don't need, if you get out in the sun any amount, you will get tan down here. So he's priced. Blackie, do you have a Western knife and hatchet set combo? I do not. I know what you're talking about. Dancing with empties. I have thought of that. You know, I've made one of those, a crystal radio set, and I made one of them little foxhole radios when I was a kid. But today, the only thing you're going to pick up is because everything transmits digitally now. And the only thing that's going to pick up is AM, if the AM isn't transmitting digitally. So those old things work great in their day, but they're just not as effective today. The one and only Nicole. Yes, I have. I've seen that where they're bringing that out. Taylor and them is bringing out a lever action 9 as well. The Cowboy Action has realized that you can do, for what they're doing, up close shooting targets real fast. And the 9mm can drop right into a single action, fire and eject just like any of the big bores. And most of the time, they're loading down real low power loads anyway. So a 9mm works well. You can put the cylinders into a 38 357 and shoot a 9mm down that bore because they're close enough to do that. And so bringing out a lever action rifle in that is right up the alley for that competition shooters because it'd be real fast shooting at real close range. So yeah, it'd be pretty good. Which now don't discount 9mm. You got to remember 9mm's biggest problem, over penetration. And the chest cavity of an average human is about the same as the chest cavity on the average whitetail. And so if it's a really good penetrator and it mushrooms out real well in a something our size, whitetail chest will do the same thing. I've got a big chamber insert from one of the, I can't remember the name right off the top of my head. Oh, thank you very much for the money. Thank you very much. And you drop it into the chamber of my single shot 20 gauge, and it's got a rifled 9-inch barrel or 8-inch barrel, 9mm, and I can keep all shots onto like a softball out to about 30 yards. And that means I can stay on the vitals of a deer. So if I was in a deer stand in real thick cover and I'm going to be shooting at bow range, 25 yards tops, I could take a deer with it. It'd be legal in Alabama to take a deer with it. So having a lever action in that might be something to think about, you know. How is Grouch doing, by the way? I was just wondering when you were going to have another video with him. I went to see him yesterday. We got a pretty good video, and I will be posting it on this Sunday. He's doing really, really well. Mr. Johnny, I do not. I have not been to Charleston, South Carolina in several years. You have a 2-stroke ice auger that will start once and only once. What say if it will start once and then it dies out? Check where the tube runs from the fuel to the carburetor on it. And if it has a crack in it or that tube has decayed over time, when you fire it up, it sucks it down. Like sucking on a straw. And we had this problem with chainsaws, and an auger motor is similar to a chainsaw motor. It sucks the inside diameter of that tube down, and it can't get enough fuel to run. It'll put, and you never fill the bowl back up. But you sit there and go to tear it down, and the bowl's got fuel because it will trickle through that pinhole. Change that connector tube. Change your fuel line from the carburetor back to the tank. Try that. Because I had one similar. You'd fire up that chainsaw, it'd run 10 seconds, and it was dead. And you could jerk on that cord all day, and it would not fire back up. You could leave it 2 or 3 hours, and it'd crank one time, run for about 2 minutes, or a minute and a half, and go dead. And it was that tube on the inside diameter was collapsing. A guy with a lot of experience on chainsaws showed me. And said, you never know. You look at it, it's clear, I can see fuel in it. But you don't realize the inside of that tube's doing that, and that's what's sucking it down when you ain't getting enough flow. Carlos, yes, that was a terrible accident at Reagan Airport. Chris Hall, any good information on a good kukri? The Condor is a decent kukri. The Kukri House on eBay, where I got mine from, is a real good place, brother. Okay, let me catch back up. Yep, Stargate. 9mm was actually 9mm was invented before 45 was. And actually it was stolen because it was 9mm Beauchard. And when Luger left Beauchard, went to making his own gun, he took that caliber. And when it came into America, we went to calling it 9mm Luger. And so it kind of stole it. Just like when we sent the 380 Browning over into Europe, they called it 9mm Browning. We call it 380, but in Europe you'll find it marked on boxes 9mm Browning. Jeff, is there anything Blackie doesn't know? The amount of information I do not know would stun a bull mastodon. You know, I have spent my life collecting information. Doesn't mean I know everything. I do not. Okay, Blackie, please confirm interchangeability of 410 and 45 Colt, because I thought 410 was a 41 caliber. It is, but it's a shotgun, so when it comes out, it will spread out to bite into the bore and go down. It's a smaller going into a larger, 41 to 44. And so when it comes out, it's designed to spread out. The lead used in slugs and etc. is designed to open up in the 410 bore. See, because it's softer. And so dead soft lead is in all shotgun pellets, all buckshot, and etc. And so the 410 will physically fit. Now, the Judge pistol is a 410 that will shoot 45 Colt, because they were trying to get around the short shotgun law by labeling it a 45 Colt, but the chamber's long enough you can put a full-size 410 in it. So if you've got the chamber capacity, it will fit. If you have a 410 shotgun, you can drop a 45 Colt, or I think there's 31 calibers that you can drop into a 410 single-shot shotgun and will go bang. Don't necessarily mean they're going to be accurate, but they'll go bang, like 30-30, 44 Magnum, all this stuff. Iraqi veteran 8888, several years ago, they did a thing where they were going to show how dangerous it was, and they were going to blow up a 410. They ran a pawn shop over here in Georgia, and they had this derelict, super cheap 410 like Rossi, and they were going to blow it up. And they started sticking anything that would fit into it and pull the trigger, and it fired all of it, including 4.54 Casull, which is insane. Full choke, no problem, fired it just fine, because that the barrels that are in shotguns are springy steel. They're designed to open up, There's like 31 calibers you can physically drop into a 410 and it'll go bang. And that's the reason that in a survival situation, a 410, for whatever ammo you might luckily find, could probably be made to fire in it. But that's for another topic. Okay, jump ahead, jump ahead. Jump ahead, jump ahead. Okay, I'm caught up now. Dead prepper, good. Like to see that for your overquilt. Got it. It is overquilt. For some reason, I could not find them words. Is there a difference in using bismuth and lead when molding bullets? I was planning on making my own. Not in a practical sense for what you're talking about. Now, bismuth is a little bit harder because bismuth was used for printing type back in the day when they used to make those blocks. They give you a mold and it made the block for the letters. That way that when a printing shop, when the letter got worn, they just melt it down and recast and make a new block. That's what bismuth was used in. And just pure lead. But they will mold bullets. Either one of them will work. Oh, cool. Randy, yeah. Just came over my food ammo box, like 20 millimeter, I think. Yeah, it's something like that. It's that long and narrow 20 millimeter. It's a naval box that went on to like a 20 millimeter deck gun that they had for shooting pirates and stuff like that. But it was perfect box to carry as a chuck box camping, because down here where I'm at, you got the ground moves with insects, ants, chiggers, bugs of some kind. And being able to go pock and snap that thing closed and know that when you come back to eat, that your food is not going to be full of ants and everything else. I've tried hanging stuff in trees. I've tried everything, and they will find a way to get to it unless it's in an ammo can. Bottom line. So I've even left it in the truck, you know, and then come back the next morning, go in there, open up the box to get breakfast, and have a fire ant nest in the middle of my food box because it wasn't a metal locking top. So ammo cans is the way to go. Yeah, Andrew, you can physically fire it, but you're going to have to scrub the plastic out down the line. You know what's far better? Soda boxes. Go to one of the hardware stores and get you a Harbor Freight sells punches that are hollow punches that make a card disc. And I use the wax cardboard of like soda can boxes or cereal boxes. Find you something you can lay it on and hit it and cut it out. I use one of those $1 frisbees as a base, so that when I hit my punch, it'll cut through, and what it's hitting, that frisbee won't damage the tip. If you put it on wood or something, eventually you'll dull your punch. Don't ever put it on something hard, because your punch will dull, and like 2-3 hits won't cut no more. And so I put that frisbee, like you can use a cutting board underneath it, wooden cutting board or something like that, but it needs to be something that's going to stay flat. So when I punch it, I don't take pieces out like wood. So I like to use plastic cutting board or something like that, and just lay that up there and just start punch, 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 and make your own to put into it for wads. And that's how I punch out for like 20 gauge to use for my big flintlock 2-liter chase, which is a 20 gauge shotgun flintlock's what it is. I have a punch that punches out those. And that's how I go and I shoot. If you go look at my muzzle loading shotgun series I put in here, where I stack 3 of those in there, and that's my base wad, etc. But I also have the punch, I can punch them out to go in my 36 or my 44 cap and ball and use them for wads. And if I'm making up shot loads for the 44 for snake shot and percussion, that's what I use for that. Works really well. Big E the Knife Nut, hello there. Washburn Billy, thank you very much. Yeah, Terry, the 410 is unbelievable for what all you can drop into it. On the other hand, it's perfect for small game. It's super easy to reload. You don't need any big tools or nothing. We used to reload them with a heavy washer. We went to the auto parts house and looked through their washers, and it was like a body washer or something. So it was a thick washer, had a hole in the middle, perfect for a primer. And so you would sit the shell up there and run a punch down and go pock and just knock the old primer out. Thumb press a new primer in, put it back up onto that side of the washer, not in the center where the hole was, but the side of it. Run a deep well 1/4-inch drive socket down the hole with an extension. I'll go tap, and that would seat the primer. The reason you use that socket is it's a hole, see, that the primer can come up into, and it's not pinching it. It's hollow. And so just tap and seat the primer. Then you would scoop your pre-measured amount of powder into it, take newspaper wadding or cut wads like we were just talking about, put in there, put the shot on top, put another cardboard wad on top of it, and then take Elmer's glue and run around the top, and it would seal it up. And we'd reload 410s like that. We also made all brass shells out of like, I think it was 444 Marlin brass or 4570, something like that. We made all brass 410 shells that way. Okay, Dancing with Empties. What do you guys figure is the best survival smokeless powder that can be used the most in different cartridges? Not necessarily Magnum charges. Unique. There may be better, okay? But I'm coming with 40 years of experience, and if the one powder I'm going to have is unique. And at one time, I was loading 17 different calibers, from shotguns to automatic pistols, with unique powder. And so if I was stocking up, I stocked up on unique, which now HP 38, I think, is what I've shifted over to for a lot of my stuff, but unique would be the powder I'd choose. David Wright, glad to do it. And thanks for tuning in with you, son. Glad y'all enjoy it. Washburn Billy, yeah, you can use playing cards for the same thing, but you got to buy a deck of playing cards. But the a soda box is waxed cardboard. Works just fine. And it's a paraffin wax, which doesn't stick to the bore. And so you just get it up there and punch these out and make them into whatever. And you're going to throw that box away anyway. So beer boxes, soda boxes, cereal boxes, you know. And I've got a punch set over there, and I just sit there and start punching and make up. In fact, somewhere over there, I've been up in my muzzleloading thing. I've already got the shotgun ones already punched out and everything. So I use all of them as a wad and used them for years in shotgun shells, 20 gauge and etc., 12 gauge punch. I didn't need the plastic wads. I could load modern 20 gauge, modern 12 gauge with just wads and powder, put the wad on top, and use a little glue to keep it from popping back out, and we're good. Benjamin, good evening. Bear, yes, we do. Before it warms up, we need to run lead. I came back with about 10 pounds of lead from one of my adventures, and I've been waiting for cool, so we'll pick a rainy day and go down to the dog pen and get underneath the shelter and sit there and run ball and get the calibers we need made up. I need to ascertain what I'm going to be needing to do in it. Andrew, your dad built a 72 smoothbore Fowler. It works like a 12 gauge. They're really good. William, hello there. Thank you very much. Yes, Gray Wolf, the 10 grain unique. If you don't know what it is, use 10 grains of unique. I've heard that. I ain't gonna say that's gospel, but for those people, especially, that are fire forming their own shells, where you've got something obsolete or so hard to get, where you can get this is available over here, this 280 Remington, but I need this oddball Carcano. I can run it through the set of dives and get it close, and then put it in the gun and put, like a wax wad plug in the end of it was like 10 grains of unique, and fire it and make the brass form fit to where it'll actually be where I can run it through the dies properly and everything. I have fire formed some oddball rounds before, but that was back in my gunsmithing days when I had a shop. Use playing cards only if I lose with them. Yep. Shane, Blackie, do you recommend hardening the lead balls by dropping them into water after casting? No, there are only certain situations where I would do that, and I've experimented with it. But the cap and ball guns prefer the soft lead. The rifling is set up for soft lead, so the harder the lead gets, the less accurate it becomes, and the more leading it gets. Where instead of it, think of like taking and pushing a marshmallow down a bore, how it would just form to the shape of the rifling and go, right? It's soft. Think about now trying to force one of them super bounce hard balls in there and have it and kind of going down the board. That's what happens. So when you harden the lead, it actually kind of skips and chatters going down the board, and it leaves lead on the wall, and leading goes up actually. Now you could make, depending on the situation, I have hardened conicals before because I was in a situation around hogs and stuff, and I was trying to get maximum penetration. And so I had made a 36 caliber conical and dropped it into water intentionally for that. I knew it was going to lead the bore, but it would penetrate better. And I was trying to shoot a big hog. And so I needed that kind of penetration. Anything else, I want it soft to expand out. It does not open up like a hollow point, but it does kind of flatten out, kind of like a marshmallow. Think like you squeeze a marshmallow and it'll swell out. That's what the lead does on impact. And I know this, if you're antithetical and people, oh, it doesn't do that. I've dug too many out of animals that I've hunted, and they are not round when they come out. There's a flat side and a dome in the back where it hit and it spread out sideways. So it really does work. All right, let's see. Hello, Common Sense Karen. Yeah. How you doing? Mark Burgess, yes, there actually was. For a while there, they marketed it was a super bounce ball, and they called it non-lethal until they actually shot a deceased calf with it, and saw how it busted up the ribs and everything. And they kind of retracted it and said, "Well, it could be lethal." Yeah, it can be lethal. Anything moving that speed is lethal. I don't care if it's a ping pong ball. If it hits hard enough and has mass, it'll do it. Whirlwind, good evening from Arizona. How you doing? William Droom, Bill Droom, good evening, brother. That's another thing. Gray Wolf is correct. When you harden the cap and ball ones, it makes it harder to load because that lead has got to shave and squeeze. So. Patriot American, it should be still good. I have loaded 50-year-old powder before where somebody had bought 5 or 6 pounds and over the years had not consumed all of it. And then they had reached a point where they were getting out of it. And in the 2010, I think it was, the powder had been bought in 1958. So that was 50-year-old powder. It was DuPont. And it loaded and fired. Now, what I did is I did a test of it. I put like a light load into something and went out there and tested it and pulled the trigger, make sure that it wasn't going to be a dead powder that just wouldn't ignite. or might need Magnum primers. It fired fine. So I went to what was considered the base load. It fired fire. I shot it across my chronograph. It looked good. I loaded 10 of them, fired them. Didn't see any wild, and it's very stable as long as it's been treated well. It hadn't been exposed to extreme heat, extreme cold repeatedly. It chemically is very, very stable, and that's the thing they say. Well, we'll put markers and stuff in it to ID it. No, you can't do that. We'll make it where it decays over, a certain amount of time. No, you can't do that because it's a chemical, and once it's bonded and all together, it is its own thing. It'll be there 100 years, But what I'm looking for when I go to shoot it is, do I have wild variations in pressures? And so if my shot to shot average is like way up there, like 200 or 300 feet per second, that tells me the powder just ain't that good anymore. It's wore out, or for whatever reason, it's not reliable enough, and so should not be used in something. And I've had to dispose of some powder that became that way, but it was super, super rare. And like I said, I have seen 50-year-old powder work just fine. So. All right, let's see. Andy Knight, Blackie, are you familiar with the Confederate Cofer revolver? Yeah, I have seen it. Museum type representations of it and collection stuff like that. I've never held one to my knowledge, but I've heard of it and seen it. Yeah. Yes, the one and only Nicole. You can make touch rags out of it, which what we would always do if it was something like they don't even make that powder anymore. I'd had it for so many years. I had got it when I had my shop in the 80s, and I believe I'd used it in shotgun. That powder. It was something like, I'm just quoting a number. Don't take me as gospel, but I want to say it was like H7 or something like that. And I was going through my stuff, and just a couple of years ago, when I found that can up there with all of them, and I got thinking, what did I have this for? And usually I put a piece of masking tape on a pound and list all the calibers I load out of that. So, and there wasn't anything there. And so I got kind of curious about it, and it was about half a pound. And so I went to looking online and found out they hadn't made that powder in like 14 years. There wasn't any information on it anymore. It was no good. So it wasn't worth the risk of trying to whatever. So I went out and got in the driveway and poured the old classic streak like you do for gunpowder, and got a little bit of barbecue lighter fluid, naphtha, and went along and wet it and made that go on about another 10 yards. And I took paper towel and lit the damn stuff and backed up and just let it burn. Whew, it was gone, But I'm always scared when you go to dispose of something like that, you can't throw it in the garbage because you don't know where that's going to go, and it might get put in a fire somewhere and blow something up. So you got to get rid of it. So the responsible thing I always thought to do is just burn it up, put it in a safe environment and burn it, get rid of it. Rainmaker, hello to Utah. Yeah, I actually had a musket that a friend brought me and wanted me to help him do some work on. And the first thing I did was run a ramrod down the barrel and find out it was loaded. And he said, well, the family legend is that in like 1910, that grandfather had passed away and this had been his gun, and it'd been hanging on the family wall ever since as a decoration. And he wanted to see if it could be made to function again. And they didn't even know it was loaded. It was a flintlock. And I figured, after that much time, so I ran the rod down and figured out, yes, it's loaded. And I'm not going to try to fire it off after that much time. The barrel may have rusted inside. You never know. So I dug the powder out of it with a worm, just let it rain down the barrel, run up and start turning it. Those two fingers on the end of the worm will sit there and cut and I got the shot out of it, and it was wadded up newspaper. The newspaper was from 1856 because we found a date on it. It said last year in 1855 when such and such did. So 1856 newspaper was wadding in it. And we touched a match to the powder after we'd got it all out, and it went poof. God knows how long it had been loaded. Washburn Billy, Blackie, when you use live minnows, you're talking about crappie fishing, what's your preferred placement of the hook? I've heard all kinds of things. I would take the shiner minnow, and on the back, you want to go in the top third. And I always like to hook right at where the top dorsal fin is, just behind it. So that dorsal fin will come up. Okay. Don't go too deep or you go through the spine, it paralyzes him. But you hook through right there and hang him, and he'll survive quite a long time like that. He'll swim around with that hook in him, attracting the crappie. And that the crappie always come from the bottom up. If you'll notice the anatomy of a crappie, he's kind of like a flounder, which the flounder has been laying on his side so long, both eyes have migrated to one side of his head. But the crappie doesn't sit in the water like that. He sits in the water like this with his eyes looking up. And you got a little minnow up here. He wants to come up from the bottom side. That's the blind spot of a fish, is at the back bottom underneath their tail is where he's blind. That's where the crappie wants to come up and then use that mouth to inhale them. So you'll always catch them coming up, but you'll never catch a crappie. He won't ever go down after one. That's when you start at the bottom and you start coming up and pausing and pausing and pausing till you find the depth they're at. And then they'll always come up to that. But I want to be swimming around in a circle. And you'd notice that your minnow would get a little faster. It means there's a crappie after him. And then suddenly you had a crappie. So that's my favorite placement on it. Mike F., anybody know about a good Spyderco knife for a starter? I have had, and I have had some experience with Spyderco, but I cannot speak to that. If you're looking for a knife to get into bushcraft with, I'd recommend a Mora. One of the Mora clippers. They're like $22. Good knife for the price, definitely. Hold up well, and if you screw it up, it's a $20-something knife. And if you're hunting a Spyderco lockback, yeah, I would not go into the in-depth, deep, expensive ones, the super fancy ones, until you learn how to sharpen and etc. Because it's a learning curve, and you don't want to screw up an expensive knife by rounding it off or something where you got to send it. Somebody knows what they're doing to put a bevel back on it, and just do it that way. Mike F., on the Lamat, I did. I was loaned a Lamat to load. I loaded one round with that rammer, and I was sweating it that it was going to break. That was the weakness of that design. And I took the cylinder off and loaded the cylinder off the gun for the rest of it. I wouldn't even try to load it with that. Matt Parker, hello, and thanks for tuning in. I have a Schofield. I want a Schofield real bad. They're my favorite guns of the West. But the guns, both original and repos, are ridiculous. Yes. They're ridiculous because it's such an intricate design to make it. All those moving parts and that thing, it's a brilliant design. It really is. And in smokeless, it works very well as a field revolver. As a black powder gun, no. The Army figured that out. You'll fire 2 or 3 cylinders and it'll jam up because there's no place for the fouling to go, and it binds the cylinders up. And that's where the U.S. Army got rid of them, was because of that. And but they are very expensive guns. You're talking $1,300-$1,400 before you start talking about tax. And so they are a real investment to get one. I haven't got one. I shot one, played one. I've had lust for like a 3-inch barrel, the hideout they call it, that and 45 Colt, man. And if you see it where they'll shave the back of the cylinder and you can put 45 ACP and moon clip in it, that might be a thing. But Blackie ain't got that kind of money right now. Excuse me. All right, Mark. Planning on using Uberti repo parts on the pressure bearing components and a BB gun copy of the gun for the back end. Obviously, I would test this and land it. What are your thoughts? I doubt the BB gun can handle it. The BB gun at best is going to be zinc, is the metal. And that zinc does not have that kind of structural ability. It tears under shock. And that's the reason. It'll break like an eggshell. And so firing it as a firearm, the shock wave, when it hits it, fluid steel flows and flexes. What they call the brass frame is actually gunmetal number 6. It's not truly brass. It flows and flexes. Zinc does not. So the Demix guns and those type of things, if you ever fire it for real, you may get one shot, maybe two, and the gun's going to bust in your hand. The metal, they intentionally chose that metal intentionally for that. Otherwise, it's a gun. And you can't manufacture it without all these licenses and all these proofs. So for them to be able to make it as a BB gun or as a Demix or a demo or whatever, it had to be made out of pot metal zinc because it will not hold up. And so I wish there was a cheaper, obvious way around it, but there ain't. It won't hold up. Jeremy, doing pretty good. Thanks for tuning in. Dance was empty. Blackie, would you go with a buck 110 or a 112 folder? Either one would be a really good choice. The 112 would be definitely lighter, but the 110 is extremely durable, and that weight, those big heavy bolsters, gives it a great deal of strength whenever you're turning the blade. So if you're talking about doing bushcraft with it, I'd go with the 110 because it will not flex and warp, doing a lot of circle cuts and stuff like carving wood with it, like you do with a bushcraft knife. I would go with the 110. If it's going to be a daily user and just for standard cutting, etc., the 112 being lighter might be the way to go. Will, what's your favorite 1873 Colt, EMF, Great Western, Pieta? I have a Uberti Model P. That was the exact 1-to-1 of the Colt. It was so good that when they brought them out, Cimarron brought them out, that all the collectors blew a gasket because it was 100% an original Colt. And it was so easy to just roll mark that barrel of Colt, and the collectors would not be able to tell the difference because they had all the little subtle details of it. And it was a Uberti Model P. I've got that, have had that a long time. That's my favorite Colt single actions in 73. Now today, if I was going to pick up one out of it, the Pieta's got a really good one, and the Uberti's got a really good one. Of the two, I would probably go with the Pieta because usually it's a little cheaper price, and both the Uberti and the Pieta will have flaws here and there. But Uberti is normally really, really good, or it's got a crappy flaw in it. I mean, just the way it is. And so, of the two, I'd probably risk it with the Pieta before I would the Uberti because of that. Mark Parker, I know the problem is getting them. You know, even the originals are ridiculous priced. And I would have thought when they started bringing those out that the price would come down over time. It is not. It has stayed up there because of the machining and the process they got to do to make that intricate design. Single action army, by comparison, is a cakewalk. But look at a diagram of a blowed up Schofield or one of the Smith & Wesson designs, and all those intricate little parts and how the internal of the frame has to be and all like that. That's what drives that price up ridiculous. Matt Parker, can you cast a back end out of gunmetal? Again, you're getting into heat treat. You can't make a cheap copy of it. I take that back. You can make a cheap copy of it, and it may last one round. I've seen people try to 3D print it. A guy tried to 3D print the frame and everything for an 1860 Army percussion revolver. Third round, he pulled the trigger, and he's holding on to the grip. He pulled the trigger, and all the screws that hold the frame to the hold the grip frame and trigger guard frame to the actual frame ripped. All the metal snapped, and the gun barrel flew back and hit him and knocked out one of his teeth. I've seen the video of that. He 3D printed all in parts. There just isn't a good, cheap way to make it yet. You know. Yeah, but, and I understand it, but used for black powder, if you're going to put 10 grains in it and just go pop like a pop gun, just to make a noise, yeah. But then again, why not just buy one of the BB guns? It'd be the same. You'd never be able to put a full power load into it. It would, it's one of them things. I wish it was easy, but it ain't. And when you start talking about making gun parts, the shock wave that has to run through that metal, it's very specialized. And that's the reason we have something called gunsmiths and gun manufacturers instead of just a die-cast metal thing. If the U.S. military could have made die-cast metal guns, they'd have done it. They took the absolute height of technology when they came up. Eugene Stoner came up with the AR-10. Nobody believed that would hold together. And when they had to dummy it down and make them 16, and the U.S. military has used it and all that casting, investment, and everything else. And how many people today thought, well, I could just make me an AR? And they find out the metallurgy that is a voodoo unto itself because of what it's having to do. Because AR ain't got a 22 long rifle ain't got no kick. So I should be able to just make a pop metal 22 semi-automatic, shouldn't I? They tried that. Ruger went and spent almost $5 million doing investment casting in aluminum and alloys and everything, trying to be able to make where it's a powder that they put under pressure and heat and it solidifies into the frames. And they spent over $5 million just figuring out that technology. It's not easy. Ooh, po' boy. Okay, Blackie, 307 or 45 long Colt and a single action for protection in the woods from bears, coyotes, and other two-legged creatures. Either one would work very well. Now, the advantage to the 357 is the fact that it less powder, less lead. You can shoot 38 special in it very easily, so you can use it for small game very easily. You can load down the 45 Colt, but you got to mark your brass, know what you got. Either one could be done, but in that, I would say the 357 because I can easily get off the shelf cheaper shells and less power to be able to shoot small game with it, and drop in a full bore 357 to take anything at close range on the North American continent. They've killed grizzly with 357 at less than 50 yards, but you got to be close. But for what you're talking about, 357. Gordon, the only top break replicas that I'm aware of are the Schofield and Smith & Wessons that are Taylor and several others are importing. And they are in the $1,400-$1,500 range. That's what we was talking about earlier. Gray Wolf, exactly. You could take mild steel and do it, but that's where you got to be an expert. If you got a master machinist that could just make it from the blueprint, yeah, he could make his own. But you ain't gonna cast it. If they could, you can bet Italy would have figured a way to do it. Yep, Sten gun, the plumber's nightmare. Easy to make. Mark Burgess, I hear you. When they came out with that, I thought a plastic gun, this ain't never going to hold up. But, over time, they've pretty much proven it. It's just taking time, but, they did prove it. Which now look at, when I started out, it was blued guns and nice walnut wood. Today, it's all plastic synthetic stocks and painted on finish. Oh, they call it something else, but it's really painted. It's baked on, Bakelite type, electric coated, powder coated, and stuff. And that's the norm for all guns nowadays, or plastic of some kind. And the real expensive exception is now the nice wood and the nice polished blue and all like that. That's how manufacturing has streamlined and stuff over the years. So who knows, 100 years from now, or 50 years from now, they may look back at, a Glock and talk about, Glocks are over 40 years old. They've had Glocks for 40 years. I had a young man tell me the other day that he had inherited a pistol from an automatic from his grandfather. And I said, oh, really? I'm thinking of 1911 or something like that. I said, was it a war gun or whatever? He said, no. But it was his back whenever he was a young man. So I'm old guy. I'm thinking like 1911 or something. I said, what caliber is it? It said 9mm. And I said, Browning high power and a couple others. He said, no, it's a Glock. A Glock? I think of a Glock as a brand new gun, only been around since the early 1980s. So it is a 40-year-old design now, 45 years old now. But to me, it's like, man, they just brought them out yesterday, So he inherited, a Glock. That's just wrong, Oh, the Glock 1, the very first generation of them. Glock was a furniture maker. He did injection moldings of that plastic to make the feet for beds. That's what it was. And whenever the Austrian army wanted a new gun, he played around with the idea of a striker fired gun. He took a basic idea of the old 25 Browning, using that lock work idea, and came up with a Glock and made it for 9mm. And then he knew how to make injection molding. They made it, and it went and was adopted by Austria, and then a lot of other countries did. And when they first came into America, we didn't understand. They were telling us that you could walk through a airport security, that the only thing metal on it was the barrel. Everything else was plastic. Of course, that wasn't true once we got it in and actually held it and figured out that the slide was metal, and there were metal cast into the plastic lower. But even then, we thought, and when cops went to them at the beginning, they were not UV stable. So if you had your gun in the sun a lot, it would oxidize over time and get brittle. And so Glock went, I know when they did the policy where any cop could trade in their gun for a brand new one, if they had first 3 years of production gun, they would trade you for a brand new off the shelf one, get them back, because they found out they weren't stable in the long run in sun. They were changing the formula of the plastic. And now it works just fine. Now they're 45 years later. Hey, Shane Lawson. Well, happy birthday to you, turning 51. Tim Harper, Blackie, how much is the wax canvas Nighthawk rucksack, shipping and all? I'm ready to order. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head. You done caught me when I wasn't thinking. Hold on. Let me look. I got them written up here on my little thing. Oh, I think the rucksack is like 160, 165, something. I have to look it up, to be honest with you. And it's been that I haven't done a run since my stroke, and I haven't brought up that part of my memory. So thanks for doing it. But I will be announcing Saturday. I'll have a video up on Saturday, and I will hold them up, and I will detail the price of them then. I know that the combo for a Red Hawk haversack and a Nighthawk rucksack is $250 all together, because it's $85 for the haversack, and then the price of the rucksack, and I give you about a $50 discount or something like that. So that, you know, I know it's $250 for a combo right off the top of my head. Yeah, Shane Lawson, Glocks are very good guns, especially for people that haven't had a lot of training, because of the way the trigger safety works. If you take your finger off of it, it's safe. It don't go bang. You can beat it with use it like a hammer. It ain't gonna go bang as long as you don't pull that trigger, because you got to fully cock it by pulling the trigger. So it's a striker fire method, and so it's great for people that have not had a great deal of training. And accurate, reliable, feeds well, tons of accessories. I mean, hey. Oh, yeah. Dance with empties. Ever have to pull up 2 pair of glasses to get a good view of something? Yes. Yes, I do. These are my general, like this, to see and read, and I shoot with these glasses as well. To read and see detail, those are these. They're 2 different powers. That's what it is. And if I take this off, I can see just fine, but I can't read that. Your comments over there, they're too blurry. And I'm farsighted is what I am. I can tell you what's going on 1,000 yards. When you start getting in within like 4 feet of me, and when you get like 36 inches, of course I can see to do everything. You know, I don't have to put on glasses to make a sandwich or something, or to even write out a note or whatever, but I do need to read. And so I put these on whenever I'm trying to see my computer screen clearly and be able to read your comments. And then these are for I'm trying to read a book or something like that, or small detail. So I know I could just get bifocals, but hey, you know. Does wearing contacts and reading glasses count? Yeah. Carlos, could you show your haversack that you're selling? Yeah. 1 second. Boop, boop. Now it's full of everything, but this is the Red Hawk haversack. It's got the 2 snaps right there, and then you got a zipper compartment up here, and then 2 zipper compartments right here. That, and the same thing without the snaps and without the extra, these 2 pockets, is the Blackbird, and that's $85, and this one is $100. And it's got the strap, it's got the carry handle on it, etc. Oh, where I got back from me and Bear going on a scout/hunt today. So Uncle Brat, you have bifocals. I understand where you're coming from. Get those variable zoom lenses. I hear you. You know, if I don't have to sit here and look at a screen, I don't wear glasses. You know, and I can do anything just fine. It's just for the detail. I have to put these on to be able to see her, or if I've got to read something small, I got to put those on. Otherwise, I can't see it. I can shoot guns without glasses on. You've seen me do that before. I'm using the force. And if I'm wearing my glasses, then I'm trying to actually be really, really accurate. Because if I put these on, I can see my rear sight really, really good. Everything else is blurry. If I put these on, my front sight looks really, really good. And my rear sight's a little blurry and my target's a little bit blurry. If I take these off, my target is super sharp and clear and the sights are blurry as all get out. So you see my problems in trying to engage and hunt. But that was my favorite line in Big Jake with John Wayne when the Indian comes up and he says he has no gun, and John Wayne starts to turn around and turns back and says, "Near or far?" And he said, "Near, eyes, no good." And he turns around and hands him a double barrel shotgun. He picks up his own double barrel and says, "Me too." I can't see to shoot far anymore. Christopher Evans, yeah, that stripper clip 5.7. That's a very old design as far as the internal stripper clip. If you go look at the Steyr from like World War I, it had an internal magazine and used a stripper clip as well. They were just trying to get around a magazine ban, a capacity ban in California and stuff like that by doing it as an internal non-detachable mag. Man, that thing would be awkward. You know, why not to carry it? For fun, yeah. Get it to take the shooting range or a little light hunt or something. It's got a high capacity, like 21, 22 rounds. So, yeah, I could see that, but no. Richard Hayes, yes, I will be announcing a new run this Saturday. I will do a video and post it on the channel, and we'll have the contact information in the description box of where to go to order. Yeah, Paul, the snow did melt. However, we did have snow on the ground on yesterday. As far as it's all melted everywhere, it came in and it rained a little bit. But what had been a snowman base at the like 3 houses down the street from me yesterday, we were riding around and I happened to look up and I got it. See if I can get the angle right where it can tell what I'm looking at there. You don't know what it's doing. There. That base of that snowman's still sitting there. And it snowed Tuesday a week ago. Crazy. Last Chance Night. Yes. The ghost peep sights are a big help for us old eyes. And I have gone to them on my lever actions. There is a rear sight you can get that's a double ring, and it works just like a ghost ring. You bring up, and I just focus and put my front sight blur in the middle of that circle, and I can be accurate with it without my glasses for hunting deer. William Moffitt, good evening. Thanks for coming in. Paul, I hear you. You got your summer down there. Todd Gibson, good evening, brother. Ooh, Ooh, a Savage 99 or a Ruger number 3. Well, the Savage 99, you're up there in that cold and ice. That gun did very well up there, depending on what the caliber is in the Savage 99. But those enclosed actions and all worked well in snow and ice. And that's one of the reasons that the 99 did so well in Canada and northern tier states. You didn't see them down here where I'm at. But you did up there. And so that would be a way to look. Now, the Ruger is overbuilt. It's bulletproof. So if the modern caliber is easier to get in the Ruger, go with that. If you like something you can hunt in the deep snow and everything else, that 99 might be a good idea. Charles Martin, would a scope work for you? Within reason. I've got a scope on my Accurate 22, and I can shoot a dime-sized group at 100 yards with it. But it has to be, I got to dial it for my eye. So it's basically I'm turning it into a pair of these, by dialing it in. It's got to have enough adjustment where I can make my good eye work with it. But yes, I can use a scope at long range. But when I was a young man, I was shooting out to 1,000 yards with an 03A3 iron-sighted Springfield and no glasses. I had 20/10 vision in my good eye. And over the years, I'm down to just 20/20 now, so I'm aging. So don't sound like much to you. It is a lot to me, believe me. Woo, 47 Celsius. Tim Pierce, a peep sight or a ghost ring sight is less fuzzy view. Yeah. A ghost ring or peep, either one works. And that it works better because it's easy for you to tell that fuzzy circle where the center of it is and put the tip of that front sight in that center where that fuzzy circle is. That's what it does for me. And it's a double ring that goes on. I got it on a 45 Colt clone of a 92 Winchester, and I can shoot it out to 100 yards on deer-sized targets to be able to hunt with it. Because of that ghost ring, I got fuzzy and a fuzzy, and I can line up the fuzzies and put it on the target because I can see the target super clear. So it's just a fuzzy on that target, and I know where I'm going to hit. So quite a bit of practice with it, though. Oh, PlayStation, cool. Play a sin nombre. Gotcha. Cool. Zombie Nation, yeah. Shotguns. Yeah, we get good with shotguns when we get older. Springer, Blackie, what kind of BB gun did you grow up with? I started out with a Crossman 760 back in the days when that thing would do 650 feet per second at 10 pumps. I hunted rabbits with that thing. I put pointed pellets on it and I hunted. It would put a piece of pellet clean through a piece of 1/2-inch plywood up close. It was as powerful as a 22. And I got that when I turned 9. And I hunted squirrels and rabbits with it. I've had a couple of daisies just for fun, plinking. I had the old pump, and then I had like the 7800 and a few others. I never got into the big dollar air rifles because I was doing it for meat. And so having one to just plink in the yard to practice shooting when you couldn't go to the field, yeah. Any kind of power, I wanted a real 22 because we were going hunting. And it was just easier to put a CB cap or a short in a 22 and get the same power as a 22 caliber air gun with a pump, but you could do it with an actual bullet. Patriot American, the TISA 1911s. They're somewhere around 3 to 4. Really good. That's my carry of a 1911. But there's a TISA that looks just like the 1911, military issue, and then there's one called the Duty that's got Novak type sights and everything. That's what I carried for an EDC. And so, and it's like, I think I got it out the door for 410, you know, and it feeds anything. And it's a 100% 1911. There's nothing chinksy or whatever. They're coming out of Turkey. And so that TISA or TIAS, TISA, is what I'd recommend for somebody that's trying to start out with a 1911. Look at those. Yes, John Loudermilk, that front sight did eventually come off, and I had to super glue it back. Well, if memory serves, it was a 2-part epoxy. Had to put it back on, and I had to make sure it was straight. And so I had to hang a piece of fishing line with a heavy weight and make sure it pulled tight so it was exactly vertical. And then I put the gun up there so that it held with a vise so it would be exactly vertical. So that piece of fishing line went through my rear sight and went straight down. So when I lined that front side up, it was on that piece of fishing line to make sure, because I was hunting rabbits with that thing around the trailer park and around the housing area, you know. And they wouldn't complain if you're using a BB gun. If you went out there shooting rabbits with a 22, they'd get upset. But I remember got out of, I think I was like 5. And I remember walking back up. I had a good day walking that creek that went through town. And I came walking back up with 5 bunnies hanging on my belt with that BB gun. Well, not, that was a different BB gun. I got that when I was 9 at Crossman. That was a BB gun I had before that. But I remember getting all them bunnies one morning. And then that 760, man, I could shoot anything with it. My dad didn't realize how powerful it was until after I'd had it for about 6 months. And I had come out the door going to target practice with it. And he's sitting there looking. And there's one of them big old hornets landed on the doghouse. And that doghouse was made out of 1/2-inch outdoor grade plywood back in the 70s, you know. And he said, shoot it, that big old wasp. So I shot it, and that pellet went clean through that plywood. And my daddy was kind of shocked. And he walked over and looked, and he could look in the door of the house and see daylight through the hole. And he said, let me see that thing. And I pumped it back up to 10 pumps and handed it to him, and he shot, and it went through again. It wasn't just a weak spot. And he said, how long you wait? He got it for Christmas for me, you know, and here I am shooting stuff. And that's when he figured out that it was a whole lot more powerful than he had intended to let me have walking around that place. But hey, you know, nobody's got in trouble. Nobody died, you know. Will, how do you like the CZ75? Love it. I've got one. I've got one of the Turkish clones of it. I did my research, and the one I picked up is a 1-to-1 exact of the CZ75. The guy that was doing the demo of it has an actual CZ, and that one he interchanged parts. All of it was interchange. And if you go to get a CZ mag, they're like $47. If you get one for the one I got, they're $21. So I got extra mags and everything. But it's a CZ75. I got to shoot an original CZ75 that someone that was in the military over here at Fort Rooker, that his job was to jump over the fence into the other side of the dark curtain into Czechoslovakia, Russia, and everything. He'd come back from a mission with a CZ75. And so that was the first one I ever got to see. He called it that Russian gun. It's actually Czechoslovakian. That Russian gun. And I got to shoot it when I was a young man. Yeah, the Rock Island ones the price has gone up on it. They got good quality, but the word's got out they made good guns. And so that's reading the price went up, I believe. Yeah, the TISA 1911 would be the one I'd recommend. Gray Wolf, they make a high power clone. See, no, it's not exact. Okay, the CZ. Czechoslovakia was under the Soviet control, and they wanted a gun for export. not for internal. They were issuing Makarovs and CZ-75s. No, CZ-52s. And that time. And so they went to the Soviet government and they wanted an export gun to make money, see, for Czechoslovakia. And the Bren 10 is just a CZ. But they took the Browning high power and made it a double action, increased the capacity of the mag, and streamlined it. But it's obviously where they got that design from. You know, it's like the next generation high power was the CZ-75. And it was because of me shooting that CZ-75 that I fell in love with the Browning high power, and my daily carry for nearly 15 years with the Browning high power. I love my 45, but I could be spun around, disorientated, hit the ground, roll up, and that gun would hit center of mass. It made me look good. So I put really good hollow points in that thing and carried it, and it was my favorite one. And then the CZ is just as good. I've taken it out to the shooting range several times, and people want me to see me shoot it, and I'll go up and just start running the plates with it. You know, the last time I went out there, now that was pre-stroke, but the last time I went out there, this guy wanted me to bring it out, and he'd buy ammo. He'd say, I'll give you a box of ammo if you just let me shoot. I want to test it. And I said, sure. And he got up there at like 5 yards, 7 yards, and ran the steel plates with it. And he said, that's pretty good. And he came walking back up to where we're at the covered part, which is 25 yards from the plates. And I slapped the next mag in it, and I ran the plates from 25 yards. You know, and he was really shocked with that. And I said, yeah, I can head shoot at 25 yards with it. If I can't head shoot at 25 yards, why am I carrying this as a self-defense gun? And so it's either that or the TISA 1911. I interchange them, but mostly I carry the 1911 because it's thinner. But if something was going to get serious and I needed capacity, you bet my CZ-75 is going with me. That CZ clone's going with me. Okay, let me catch up. Okay, cylinders and arbor getting cut by the blast. Oh boy. I didn't catch anonymous what gun it was. But if it's cutting the arbor from blast, it will mark it a little bit, you know, and that's just the pure flash right there where it hasn't got anywhere to go. It's coming out of the cylinder, and there's the base pin, and that it's a blowtorch, and it will put a little dip in it. In fact, a lot of them come from the factory with a dip right there. That's not new. They come from the factory with that dip, and that's to give fouling a place to get at so it doesn't bind it up. So make sure that it's not, that dip wasn't there from the factory to begin with. If it's cutting it now, and it should be jagged if it's cutting now, then there's something wrong somewhere. It's not hardened. You might need to return that to the factory. But it should be hardened. Oh, Spring Car, it was in Apache at Fort Rooker. Oh, yeah, they're great aircraft. No, anonymous, it will not cut it in half. It will mark it down to a point, but it will quit. But like I said, all of them, 51 Navy, yeah, that it's okay. It will normally just kind of flame cut right there, but it doesn't keep going. Sir Malcolm, thank you very much. Yeah, anonymous, they will. When I got my 1860 new, like 3 years ago now, whatever, that's one thing I noticed. There was a little relief cut right there, and it's cut down fouling on the base pin, because that's normally a place where it's trying to push it back underneath the cylinder, that pressure. See, and it wants to bind up on the front of it. And after you've shot 5, 6, 7 cylinders and you slide it off, right there, there'll be a thick black ring. And they're putting a little relief cut there so that as that blast hits it, it blows outward and keeps the fouling from building up right there. Australian military only recently. Yeah, they should pop up. In fact, there's a guy that he advertised on something that I've seen. It's something the crate, the surplus crate or something like that. And he had a bunch of high powers. They just come in recently from some place and he was selling them. But that TISA 1911, I've held them. Gun shop over here sells them around $450, something like that. They would be a very good choice. If you like the high powers, they'd be a very good choice. Anonymous, don't worry. It will not cut it in half. I still prefer the old type sights over. I don't use aim points. Now I can see the advantage that they have in combat of having that aim point out there, but to me, it's something sticking up big on the top of the gun, and to me that's going to get beat, banged, rammed, hit, chipped, something. And when that battery quits working or it gets matched, you don't have a sight. I know of a law enforcement guy that they were looking for this guy, and this guy rolled out of a hallway door with a shotgun, and the cop had to dive for cover. And in trying to dive through this door, his sight smacked the door frame and mashed it flat. And whenever he did get pulled up and get a shot, he didn't have a sight. He just looked straight down the gun and pulled the trigger and shot at the guy. And the guy got away, but he couldn't do effective shooting because his gun was gone. At least I like Novak type sights, which are wide and deep and fairly rugged and will take a pretty good hit. I'm not out here to use my gun like a hammer and pound tent stakes in the ground, but at the same time, Murphy's Law, things happen, and electronic gear is great, is not going to be absolute. That's the reason, like, where I put the scope onto the CZ, I sighted it in first and got the sights set before I ever put the scope on it. And then I set that scope so that if anything ever happens, I'm in the field and that scope gets broke, I can take those two knobs off, pull it, and I still got a gun with iron sights. An electronic sight that's a halo that once it turns off, it's just a box you're looking through. You ain't got a sight on the gun. So that's just my thoughts. Thanks, Chris Hall. Thank you, brother. Well, guys, we've been on an hour and a half, an hour and 32 minutes, and we'll call it an hour and 33 minutes. Man, how time flies when you're having fun. And I've got to set a table up and get to packaging up my haversacks and stuff I'm mailing out tomorrow. So I think we're going to call it quits now. Guys, thank you so much. I always look forward to seeing you guys and talking to you. And I will be on next Thursday night. So if you get a chance, come and hang out. I really appreciate it. And like I said, Saturday, I will post a video. Now, if you're looking for the surplus, you're looking for where to get the stickers or any of that, go back to the play video right before this when I started tonight. And in the description box, I got all them contact numbers, even my email that we're going to do the haversack run on will be in that. So go look at that, and it's the live chat immediately before this in the playlist. Okay? God bless. Y'all have a good night. Safe journeys. I'll see you next week.